Everyone needs compassion, love that's never failing. Let mercy fall on.
About some Americans fishing in the Amazon up in northern Brazil. It was October, and October apparently, anyone fished in the Amazon? No? Okay. Apparently October is the time that you catch good peacock bass. And can you stop again? Thanks. And so they were excited, but they didn't catch anything. They got a couple of small ones and they weren't happy. They didn't realise that a few days earlier the river authorities had emptied the dam up river, and so the river levels had increased, and apparently when that happens, the fish don't bite. They were feeling a bit sorry for themselves when a couple of local lads came past fishing. Americans had very expensive fishing gear, fishing rods, and these locals had just some nylon wrapped around some cardboard. One of the Americans knew Portuguese and asked them, have they caught anything? And the boys responded back, we pass with hunger. And one of the Americans thought, oh, we fish for diversion. The diversion from our mundane lives, left their good jobs, their big cities, to have a diversion, to go fishing in the Amazon. But these locals fish for desperation. If they don't catch anything, they don't eat. Good story to show us the importance of perspective. Some things are way more serious than others, aren't they, in life? Some consequences are way more serious than others. You don't catch anything, you've wasted a few $1,000s, but in the light of how much you earn doesn't really mean anything. For some, you don't catch any fish, you don't eat. If that continues on for a few weeks, it could get quite desperate. Sometimes I feel that's what we're like with the message of Christianity, with the gospel. A lot of people are out there that don't really care about the message, living their lives, pretty comfortable, but not really serious, not really urgent about their own spiritual well-being. Don't really care about whether there's a heaven or a hell, just living their lives. And the message today, if you want to turn in your Bibles to Matthew chapter 16, if you want to grab one out of the pew, it's page 687. This is the last of the sermons in our little series about building the church. Jesus has a message today. He says, listen, if people want to follow me, then this is how you do it. And it's a serious message. There's only one way of following Jesus. There's not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot of ways to God. There's only one, through Jesus. This is such a serious message this morning that, in fact, it's the second time that Matthew's recorded it. He's already said in chapter 10 almost these identical words. And he's recording it again here. It's serious because in our context, Jesus asked the question, who do people say that I am? And there was a whole lot of confusion. Some said you're this guy, some said, oh no, you're probably a lot here along this line. Someone said, oh no, you're one of the prophets. And so there was confusion among the people. They're not going to follow Jesus if they're not sure who he is. Can he be trusted? You follow someone that you trust. They weren't sure who Jesus was, so there was confusion. Makes this an important question. Peter knew who Jesus was, but then he didn't know what Jesus was going to do. He rebuked Jesus and said, "Oh, no, you're not going to die on the cross. I'll stop that from happening." And Jesus had to say to Peter in verse 23, "Get behind me, Satan. You're not thinking about God's things, but about man's." So even the apostles, those who were closest to Jesus, understood maybe a little bit of who he was, but they didn't understand what he was needing to do. So there was confusion. Makes what Jesus is about to say very important. And then Jesus in verse 20 said, "Don't tell anyone that I'm the Christ." We covered that last week. Why didn't he want anyone to know that he was the Christ? Because if he was, they would have taken him by force, made him the king, because they thought the Christ was going to be a conquering war hero that would liberate them from the Romans. And he didn't want to get mixed up in that. So he said, "Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone." Because there was confusion. Confusion about who Jesus is and confusion about what his point is in coming. And so Jesus, almost like he took a deep breath and he said, "Now listen, everybody. If you want to follow me," we might say today, if you want to be a Christian, then here's what you need to do. Isn't that an important message for us? Because there's confusion out there. Who is Jesus? What's the way to God? And here it is. Here's what Jesus says. Let me read it to you. Verse 24. Matthew chapter 16 and verse 24. Then Jesus said to his disciples, "If anyone wishes to come after me, let him deny himself." Some other versions might say, "If anyone wants to be my disciple, let him deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life shall lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake shall find it. For what will a man be profited if he gains the whole world and yet forfeits or loses his soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and will then recompense or reward every man according to his deeds. Truly I say to you, there are some of those who are standing here who shall not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." Well, Jesus speaks it clearly. If you want to be a follower of Jesus Christ, then here it is from the horse's mouth. It's important, isn't it? This is from the very mouth of Jesus. If you want to follow Jesus, if you want to be a disciple, if you want to be a Christian, then here it is. A lot of confusion surrounding Jesus back in their day, and a lot of confusion surrounding it in our day. And so let's be very clear. Jesus gives us 4 essential understandings in order to follow him as he requires us to follow him. And so let's look at the first one. The first one there is following Christ requires denial. You see that? If anyone wishes to come after me, let him deny himself. Deny, it means to disown. It means that you no longer want to be associated with yourself. It's interesting, isn't it? You no longer want to be associated with yourself. You know, I studied this week, and I looked up that word, and I thought back to when I was 19, when I followed Jesus for the first time. I wasn't brought up in a Christian home. I made quite a bad mistake. My own desires, my own lusts for pleasure and for whatever satisfied me was beginning to get others in trouble. And I all of a sudden, for the first time, realised what sin was. And I remember going home. I lived out in a little sleep out, and I knelt down on my bed and I said to Jesus, I don't want to live my life anymore for me. I want you to lead it. And when I read that this last week, denial, I sort of thought, oh, that's really what I did. I didn't want to be associated with myself anymore. I was blowing it. I sort of thought that if I continue to lead my life, I'm going to mess it up. Because there's stuff in here that's not good. That's what denying is. I no longer want to associate with myself. I want to associate with Jesus. Jesus is saying you should no longer exist to promote your own selfish interests, but you are now to be wrapped up in the cause of promoting the glory of Christ. Boy, I love that. Is it up there? Look at that. Wrapped up in the cause of promoting the glory of Christ. Then he says, take up his cross. If anyone wishes to be a Christian, if anyone wants to follow me, let him deny himself and take up his cross. You know, we might not understand that as well as they did back here. But if we all lived in the first century, we might be heading off to the market and we might pass somebody carrying their cross. Where would they be going? Any ideas? Exactly. So they'd be going to die. The landscape was often marred with crosses, with people hanging on them, criminals. And so when somebody took up their cross, it wasn't a good thing. They were going to die. And so when Jesus uses this phrase, take up his cross, the people would have thought, he wants me to die for him. He's referring to death. It's similar in a sense to denying of ourselves. It's dying to us and living for him. This is what it means to follow Jesus. See, Christianity isn't, being a follower of Jesus isn't adding Jesus to our lives. We're still in control. We're going to live our lives, but I sort of want to be religious as well, and so I'll add Jesus to my life. Maybe when I buy a lotto ticket, I can pray to him and hope that I win. So I'll add him to that part of my life. I'm in trouble, and so I can pray to him, so I'll add that part to my life. But generally, I'm in control. It's my life. It's not his life. He's added to my life to make it better. It's not Christianity. If you've added Jesus to your life, but it's your life, be careful, you're deceived. That's not Christianity. Jesus here says, if anyone wants to follow me, he's got to deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. So, it requires denial. Secondly, it requires an exchange. Look at verse 25. Whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake shall find, you know what an exchange is, right? I'll give you a couple of Star Wars figures and you give me a McDonald's voucher. It's an exchange. I give you something, you give me something. Well, Jesus says you exchange your life for his life. This is really another way of saying what verse 24 has already said. If you want to save your life in this life, you're going to lose it in the next. If you want to lose your life in this life for Christ, then you're going to save it for the next. What does that mean? Well, to save your life in this life would be to value it too much to give it up to Jesus. You could save it from submission to Jesus. You can be the boss. You could save your life from being ridiculed or mocked for Jesus, because nobody likes that. And so you don't want that, and so you live for yourself, you blend in, you're part of the crowd, never speak about Jesus, never wear a shirt like Alan's, simply Jesus on the back. Never do that. Just be quiet, blend in, do what everybody else is doing. You'll save your life. You'll save your life from obeying some commands in the Bible that everybody else in the culture thinks is crazy. You can save your life from that kind of ridicule. But then you'll lose it. When you die and you stand before Jesus, he'll say, "Depart from me, I never knew you." You'll lose it. Or you can lose your life on earth. You can give up your dreams for his dreams. You can endure the ridicule and the mockings because you think it's worth it. You think it's okay. Because you've determined that this life is only 70 odd years, if that. But eternity is forever. You consider that Jesus is more beautiful than getting drunk or doing stuff with the crowd. You think living for the truth is more important than just living for the moment. Remember a guy called Eric Liddell? Who was that? Somebody? Yes. Athlete, Scotsman, 1924, Paris Olympics, won the gold medal in 400 metres. Chariots of Fire, yep, we've watched the movie. Eric Liddell was 21 years of age when he won that gold medal. He loved the Lord. Did he love the Lord? He wanted to bring the Lord into it, and when they said, "Man, how do you run so fast?" he said, "Well, for the first 200 metres I run as fast as I possibly can." And then he said, "For the next 200 metres, with the help of God, I try to run even faster." That was his tactics. 21 years of age, gold medalist. Wow, he's got a future, hasn't he? That's probably, I mean, in our day, that would be another 2, possibly 3 more Olympics. What happened to Eric Liddell from 1925 to 1945?
He was captured by the war.
Okay. He was a missionary to China, where he was captured and sort of faded away, wasted away, got an illness, and died at 45 years of age. As soon as the Olympics were over, the very next year, off to China to be a missionary, where he wasted away and died young. Is that a wasted life? Would we say that's wasted?
No, because the missionary, so he was bringing the word of God to everyone he knew.
Absolutely. To a lot of people, that would be a wasted life. To Eric Liddell, He'd given up his life. He lost his life for Christ's sake. He found it. He was living real life. He'd exchanged his life for Christ's. He was a winner. He believed there was something way more eternally valuable than a gold medal around your neck. Well, our third point, look at what he says in verse 26. For what will a man be profited if he gains the whole world and yet loses his soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? Let me ask you a question. How many decisions this last week have you made based upon your soul? Many? Don't really think like that, do we? Soul, that's a genre of music, isn't it? We don't think about it much beyond that. And yet Jesus says you could gain the whole world. You imagine being the boss of the whole world. All the oil, all the resources, you're the Prime Minister of every country in the world, all of the tax goes back to you. I mean, you could gain everything in the world and it not be as valuable as your soul. That's what he's saying. So what's the soul? Well, man really has no idea what the soul is. We live primarily for our senses, don't we? What we can see, what we can touch. We live for the physical realities of the moment. And you know, science, which has become the new truth, the new authority on what is true, science has led us to believe in it's called a naturalistic worldview. Don't be scared by big words. Everything has a natural explanation. That's what naturalistic is. Everything has a natural explanation. There is no supernatural. There is no God. You go to university, which will have a naturalistic worldview, and they'll read the Bible as good history, but they don't believe it because there can't be any miracles. Resurrection couldn't happen because it's not a natural explanation. God doesn't intervene. Our universe is closed. Nothing from outside intervenes on it. It's all part of, everything has a natural explanation. That's what science has told us. The Bible, on the other hand, teaches us that God made our first parents, Adam and Eve. He shaped them from the dust, shaped their legs, their hips, their bodies, their arms, their head. Then it says He breathed into them the breath of life, and man became a living soul, a being. Physical, aging, we die physically, but we have this immaterial part, this part of us that is spiritual. Our bodies are brilliant at physical work, right? We know how to labour. God created us physically so we could labour and work. They're great at reproducing offspring. Unbelievable in that regards. And they grow, our bodies grow. And if we have something wrong, our body physically, it sort of all gathers around to fix it. Physically, our bodies are unbelievable. But our soul connects us to our Maker. Our soul is something that you can't pinch. We're conscious of God's presence. We're pricked when we do wrong. There's something in us that knows right from wrong. We develop feelings and passions and emotions. Where do these come from? We have inbuilt radars for awe and for beauty. Why? Why all of these non-physical realities that we all know about? It's because we're not just physical, we're also spiritual. Spiritual and soul can be used together. God has created us physically and spiritually. And what Jesus is saying here is, listen, the spiritual, the soul, is way more important for us to think about than the physical. Physical is important, don't get me wrong. But it's temporary. It's going to die. It gives out. And if we pour all of our lives into our physical, we're hit by a truck at 25 years of age. We feel ripped off. We don't realise that. There's far more to life than our physical. Jesus is saying, if you want to follow me, you must prioritise the soul. A lot of people say, look, don't shove your religion down my throat. It might be good for you, that's fine, but it's not what I need. They don't understand that they're physical and spiritual. If you have a soul, you desperately need this. If you're going to die, you desperately need this. And we're all going to die. And we all have a soul. And so Jesus is being straight up and clear. To follow Jesus, deny yourself. To follow Jesus, an exchange needs to be made. Your life for His. To follow Jesus, you need to prioritise the soul. And then the last one, to follow Jesus, motivated by His return. Motivated by His return. Look at verse 27. For the Son of Man is going to come in the glory of His Father. Isn't that amazing? The Son of Man is going to come in the glory of His Father. That's a little indicator that Jesus, the Son, is the same as His Father. He's going to come in His Father's glory. Well, I wonder what that's going to be like. We sort of brush over that. And then it says, with His angels. Jesus has angels. So He's going to come back in a future day. It could be this afternoon. No one knows. He's going to come back in the glory of His Father, whatever that's going to be like. It just sounds glorious. With His angels. And why is He coming back? He's going to reward every man according to his deeds. Don't read the word reward as always positive. It just means that every single person is going to receive what their deeds in this earth have required. For some it's going to be good, for some it's not going to be good. Rewards can be both positive and negative. He's coming back to judge. He came the first time in the manger as the baby grew up, died on a cross. He came to die for sinners. The second time He's coming back as a judge. We need to be ready. Now, verse 28 has caused some problems. What does it mean? Truly I say to you, there are some of those who are standing here who shall not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in His kingdom. People say, well, they've all died and He hasn't come back yet, so is the Bible wrong? Does it have stuff that obviously is not true? Well, no, I don't think so. I don't think verse 28 is talking about his final coming back, or like verse 27 is. Verse 28, he says, I say to you, there are some of those who are standing here. So he's talking about them. What I think we need to understand, what is helpful, is often when it says he's coming in his kingdom, that word doesn't have to mean kingdom. It can mean kingly reign, or the powerful rule of a king. It's the word basilia, the basilica. That's the Greek word, basilia, and it means either kingdom or the king's power to reign and to rule. I think what he's referring to here is that some of the disciples aren't going to die until they see Christ's kingly power and rule in the world. And so verse 27 is the return of Jesus. He's going to come back one day. Verse 28 is talking about little installments of his kingly rule that they're going to see up until that time. And look at verse 17, chapter 17, the transfiguration. I think this is a fulfillment of this in 6 days' time. Jesus went up on the mountain. It's like he peeled his face back and he shone, his glory shone. And who was there? Peter, James and John. They hadn't died until they saw the glory of the King in the Mount of Transfiguration. The disciples hadn't died. They saw the burial, the death of Jesus. The graves opened up. The darkness came. This is Christ's kingly, powerful rule. He rose from the dead 3 days later. They witnessed it. They witnessed the outpouring of the Spirit. They had these powers and abilities to heal people. 3,000 got saved in Peter's first sermon. Before they died, they witnessed Christ's kingdom on earth. Not his final coming, when his kingdom's going to be fully come. They saw little snippets of it. I think that's what verse 28 means. Little snippets of his kingdom leading up to the ultimate time when he's going to burst through the clouds and judge the world in righteousness. That's why the gospel is vital. Because listening to, understanding the gospel is the only thing that prepares you and readies you for that coming. Nothing else prepares you. You can't be ready for the coming of Jesus Christ in any other way than what he's just saying here. Deny yourself. Take up your cross and follow Christ. Exchange your life for his. Prioritize the soul. And that is the only way you can be ready for when he comes back. And so, his fourth point is live in the light of his coming. Don't live for the moment. Don't get caught up in the moment. Don't think, oh look, I'll put that off until next year. Next year might not come. It's people's greatest mistakes. We think tomorrow is always going to come, but one day it won't. Are we ready? Don't live for the moment. Live for that moment when Jesus Christ is going to burst through the clouds and come back. Live for that moment. And you do by preparing yourself as Jesus has just said. So, have you denied yourself? If you're sitting here this morning and you're saying, yep, I'm a Christian. Does your life evidence denial? Is your life about you, or is it about Jesus? Have you exchanged your life? We're not talking perfection. We're talking as a habit. Perfection for you and I as a Christian will be in heaven. I'm not talking perfection, I'm talking a habit. Is the habit of your life living for Jesus, not you. Is your life evidence of a readiness for the Lord's return? Or are you so caught up in the moment, are you so caught up in your own problems, it's all about you? Maybe Jesus is tagged on to make you feel better, to help you out. Beloved, there's a lot of confusion about that. Let's be clear. That is not Christianity. As I pray this morning, I want you to maybe read these verses again. I invite you, I challenge you to respond to the Word of God. Every time we read the Word, every time we hear the Word, we should respond, especially if God is, by His Spirit, tugging at the heartstrings. That's God tugging. Listen to Him. What should you do? You should fall on your face. You don't have to literally. You should humble yourself. Give your life to Christ. Determined to deny yourself. You die if that's what He calls you to do. You want to exchange your life for His. You want to be ready for His coming.
Everyone needs compassion, love that's never fails.